Good morning, everyone. We are going to get started with our webinar this morning. We are recording the webinar. I did want to let you know that so that it can be used by you in your communities at a later time. Susie Parody, I see you. I'm wondering how I can turn off your webcam. Susie, I don't know if you can hear me, but I see your webcam. There we go. Okay. Let's see. Great. So how is everybody doing this morning? My name is Ann Ball. I am the program director at the Maine Development Foundation, overseeing the Maine Downtown Center, which is one of our programs. Okay. All right. So a couple of housekeeping issues. One second, we're working on one technical issue. There we go. So all of you are on mute. However, there is a chat feature that should be over in the right-hand side of your screen for most of you, where you can type in questions to us at any time. We will respond to questions as we go, and if there are other questions at the end of the webinar, we will have time for those questions. After today's session, we will send you a PDF of the slides from the webinar, and I will also be able to provide you by request with a recording. So if you actually wanted to use this as a training with your downtown committees or your boards, that would be fine. We will also send you a very quick 5-question survey for SurveyMonkey that we would love to have you respond to. So with that, we will get started. So today's webinar is on design. This is one aspect of the 4-point approach. And as you can see from our schedule, we have promotion coming up on May 25th and June 1st, economic vitality. And I also want to remind those of you that come to our programs regularly that we have the Network Jamboree coming up on June 16th in Bucksport, and that's our first ever Network Jamboree. I think it's a program that we would love to have network communities attend, but our Main Street communities are welcome to attend as well. It will be a speaker and then some working group roundtable format with a lunch as well. So a summary of today, as I said, design is one of the aspects of the National Main Street 4-point approach. Downtowns are critical to use design and enhance their appeal with public space, preservation of older buildings, visual merchandising, the creation of pedestrian-friendly streets, and things like pocket parks. These are all design things that we will touch upon today. Okay. Hold on. There we go. Okay. So we will learn today how to easily accomplish some incremental improvements in your downtown areas that will add value, build community pride, and enhance your distinctive sense of place. Some of today's content is basic, but I will say that I think some of the content will be wonderful for our more mature Main Street Maine communities. So why are we talking about the refresh? The refresh is really an updated approach from the National Main Street Center. They've been using the 4-point approach very successfully for 35 years, and this is their way of kind of putting a little bit of a twist on it and really integrating some aspects of the 4-point approach all together. And so you'll see that as we get into the content today. The Maine Development Foundation is really where the Maine Downtown Center lives. We are focused on research. You may have noticed the Measures of Growth was released 2 weeks ago. You can find that on our website. We do leadership training. As I said, it's home to the Maine Downtown Center, and we do a lot of work on education and secondary degree attainment. The Downtown Center in particular really focuses on downtown revitalization, which includes all of that stuff. It includes good research, leadership training, and of course economic development right in our downtowns. And we work in 28 communities. 10 of them are part of our National Main Street program, and 18 of them are what are downtown networks. And then the ones in the blue are part of a community engagement program that we work on with Grow Smart Maine called Making Headway in Your Community. So the Downtown Center began in 1999 and was created actually by the legislature. In addition to serving as the coordinator for the National Main Street program here in Maine, we also have our network communities, and we do lots of other types of programs, including green downtowns, healthy main streets, and this type of technical assistance. This webinar is all part of the type of thing we're doing. The National Main Street Center began in 1977 and has really grown, as I said, into a very comprehensive program for downtown revitalization. So let's get into the Main Street 4-point approach. As most people on the phone are aware, we have organization, promotion, design, which is what we're doing today, and economic vitality. Those are really all the legs of the stool in doing downtown revitalization. And I love this slide because it takes the 4 points and really puts them into what makes quality of life. And so the quality of life relates, as you can see, in economic, physical, social, and civic. And it really ties right in with the 4-point approach. So the refreshed 4-point approach really has tightly integrated components involving community visioning, a market understanding, then it involves transformational strategies, and then implementation and actually measurement of success. So for instance, the community vision and the market understanding, they are really kind of the inputs that inform the community coming up with transformational strategies. Like, what are the strategies they want to use to transform their downtown? How are they going to implement what they've learned from the vision that their community wants and what the market will support? And then on the outputs is really kind of a qualitative and quantitative outputs. Like, let's have our refreshed 4-point approach actually measure success, which is something that hasn't happened in the old 4-point approach. And really this whole approach to downtown revitalization really reaches broadly through the community. It is involving a collaboration of ongoing efforts by all of your board members, your committee members, staff if you have them, and it's really a way to, again, lead the downtown revitalization effort. So a little more information about the community visioning process. It's community driven, it brings together diverse stakeholders, and it really provides a foundation for outlining a community's identity. And it really is rooted, as I said, in a market reality. Like, what can your community support? Do you already have 10 nail and hair salons, or do you have one and you could support another one? Like, what does the market research say? Do you really want an Indian restaurant because you don't have one in your downtown? So a community could decide, this is an example, that they want to become a regional arts and culture hub, or a community that's senior friendly or something like that. The Downtown Center is waiting for additional guidance from the National Main Street Center on visioning, and we will be doing some training on visioning for our main streets in the future. Some of our communities have said, all right, I kind of know how to do this. We're going to just dive right in, and that's great too. But I do hope to have more assistance for our communities on the visioning process. But that is really the first step. And then you get into creating those transformational strategies. And again, bringing the community together and really providing a clear sense of priorities and direction. Most communities seems to work with 2 or 3 transformational strategies that have short-term and long-term goals. If we were going to take that example of a community wanting to be an arts hub. The transformational strategy could be, like a short-term strategy could be that they want to do a public mural program or engage local students as artists. And a long-term strategy could be something more like developing form-based planning code to promote housing for arts and cultural workers or live workspace. So you see how you can kind of take the vision and the market research and then develop a transformational strategy. And then the final step is this implement and measure. So what are you going to implement and measure that'll show visible results in your downtown and really demonstrate that you are using your resources wisely and that you have real change happening, whether it's new jobs or a new business opening. So you could have something to measure in that arts example. Could be something like, we are going to have 2 new murals in our downtown. We are going to have 1 to 3 artists on our board, and we're going to integrate art into our existing events. Measurement is always recommended to use SMART objectives. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this, especially today. I think a lot of funders really want to see that you're measuring your results, that they're specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed. So the key benefits of using this refresh approach, I think the 2 that stand out for me on this slide is that it stresses broad community engagement, and it offers a greater organizational flexibility. And just to let you know, all of the slides will be available as a PDF that we will email you this afternoon. So you'll have different ways that you can use this information after the webinar. And all of the work you guys are doing, including as we get into the design work, which is the main purpose of this webinar today, really these 8 principles are so important for all of our communities, whether you're a Main Street Maine or a downtown network community. Just think comprehensively, think incrementally. That's really, baby steps. What can you do and have success with? And I always add to this list a number 9, which is patience, because I think this type of work does not happen overnight. So the Main Street approach, design specifically, is what we're talking about today. Design really improves the physical elements of the downtown while preserving the community's authentic fabric, character, and identity. And it does it in 3 ways, which are over there on the kind of right. It does it through physical improvements, preservation, and planning. And so some examples of you can see the physical improvements, things that you guys have done in your communities, or some of these are really easy. Winter planting, flower pots, mural maintenance, and then some really get a little deeper that we will touch upon today, facade program, something like that. And then the preservation, again, a facade program, a historic tax credit workshop, and planning can also be going even deeper in a community, like a Main Street community considering becoming a certified local government and having a certified historic downtown district where they would guide applicants on making good choices related to preservation, whether it's doors, windows, trim, materials, and things like that. So today in design, again, going back to that strategy of becoming a regional arts hub, design things, again, that I said you could do. You could have the arts could reflect creatively in the downtown through like a signage, window displays, public art. I mentioned the second one, and encouraging creative people to sit on your historic preservation commission. So design. Let's see. It preserves and enhances the historic fabric, and you can also consider historic districts. So actually, historic preservation is probably the biggest part of design in your downtowns. As a reminder, Main Street is a preservation-based economic development methodology. That is, really a big part of this work. You should all be advocates for preservation and have a good working knowledge of preservation in your downtowns. So what do we value, or how do we value preservation? You can see in this flow diagram, it increases property values. We will talk briefly about the value of preservation and historic communities to heritage tourism. We will touch upon environmental issues and green buildings. And obviously this affects downtown revitalization, which in turn affects jobs and income. So it is all-encompassing preservation. Downtowns help define our quality of place. Whoops, sorry about that. Really, these dense downtowns in Maine with a lot of locally sourced materials in prime locations. I mean, this is where it's happening. It's a great thing to invest where the infrastructure already exists. So why are historic downtowns important? I'm sure you know some of this, but it is always worth reviewing. The highest property value per square acre. It can create workforce housing. It provides examples of conservation and preservation, and really your downtown's unique character and sense of place. Some more whys. It is the best economic, sorry, my computer seems to be advancing without me. Sorry about that. The best economic prospect for communities through improvement of existing building stock. All future trends of where people want to live, work, and play are in historic downtowns. Authentic downtown villages are economically essential to the tourism industry. Visitors seek an authentic village experience as a top priority, according to the Maine Office of Tourism. Travelers also seek out Main Street communities when they're traveling. Main Street is a brand. Cultural heritage tourism is traveling to experiences, to experience the places and activities that authentically represent the stories. And you'll see the word authenticity or authentic used throughout this presentation. Many of you may have seen the Brookings Institution report from 2005 that really is about economics and preservation. Preservation really is more efficient and profitable to preserve a historic building than it is to construct a new one. Property values, economic development, it is absolutely a one-to-one correlation. This is great information to share with your municipalities. I know a lot of you are having to make the case to your municipalities at this time about why investing in your downtown and why investing in historic preservation matters. I urge you to get a copy of this report and just think about this type of content as far as telling your municipalities about your value. Design also looks at promoting physical improvements like building and public spaces and facade improvements. So things like landscape design, lots of things to look at in this photograph, places to sit, shade, public art, a trash receptacle. These are all the things you need to think about when thinking about design in your downtown. And a second photograph, which also has public art. You can see those like metal bicycle sculpture things over the bridge. On the left side of the photograph, you have water. Water is a huge attraction for people to sit by for the sound and the solidarity. And you have places to sit and shade. Again, you also have use of interesting materials, the stonework. So this is a good space. These are all important things when you're thinking about design in your communities. Get involved with the local planning board or, you know, a parks and recreation, whoever is taking care of those little spaces in your downtown, and how can you enhance them? Banners and signage, also a great way to add a design flair to your communities. And wayfinding signs down in the lower right, you see not only is the banner there, but you have a sign that says shops. And remember that you know, you can have design all over the place. Design is really something that you can see, you can touch, you can smell. You know, all of these things matter in your downtown, these design components. So about those signs. So this is a building in Kentucky, which really has kind of a rough mishmash of signs on it. It has probably plastic, possibly internally lit sign for subway. It has some ghost signs on the second floor. Be mindful of how you're signing buildings. Some downtowns have sign ordinances, or they have sign design guidelines. They may include things like no internally lit signs, materials of signs can be regulated. It just can have a huge impact on the overall design in your downtown. I also want you to think about your downtowns at night. And how do your downtowns look at night? Lighting is important. The slide on the photograph on the lower right is downtown Augusta. And you can see as the sun is going down, those lights are coming up, and that's actually like very attractive lighting in a downtown. And same with the upper left slide, which is in Portland. You can also do things at night related to holiday lighting. I don't know if you've seen like the holiday lighting design that goes on in Deering Oaks in Portland, or sometimes actual lighting design on facades of buildings, but it's really a great way to bring your community alive through design at the night, in the night. So let's talk for a minute about historic districts. They are apt to be walkable and bikeable and attract youth and retirees. This is maybe more into the weeds for some of our communities, but it's always important to mention. So you are advocates, and historic districts can be a tool. They can provide incentives, design review. You can do things like certified local government, which is really the highest level of regulation related to a historic district. You can engage in preservation planning. There are many things you can do in your community as next steps. Some of our main streets regularly attend their planning board meetings or their design review committee meetings just so they know what's going on in their downtowns. And as you know, historic places matter because they create a sense of place, and they are economic centers of our communities. Let's talk about facade improvements. This is definitely perhaps something that is recommended or feasible, I should say, for our Main Street communities, but I think it's something our network communities should absolutely strive for. This is a before and after on Congress Street in Portland. And communities fund it different ways. Sometimes it's been with CDBG money, sometimes it's through a corporate donor pairing up with a municipality, like in Biddeford, where they have a revolving fund. So there are different ways to get it done, but it is unbelievable the visual impact in your downtown. This slide is downtown Gardner. This is on the corner, around the corner from the A1 diner. And this is what it looked like after. I think now it's Frosty's Donuts, but it's still occupied and still a beautiful building because of the work that was done on good design, good materials. And obviously adding that place to sit is also a bonus in a downtown. Here's a great case study from Skowhegan. So that middle building doesn't quite fit in, as you can see. This is a very creative example of a piece of Main Street that was brought together through design. So if you look over at the middle, the slide on the right, the photograph on the right, where that building has been redone, what I want you to take away from that is, yes, design-wise, similar materials, similar color palette, and you know, it doesn't look like it did probably originally, but it has much improved from where it was on this photograph on the left. But what this building has done is they put an elevator inside that building that connects both buildings on its side, so that you now have second floor shared access for 2 properties because of 1 elevator. It also has public bathrooms, and it also has a walkthrough to the rear parking lot. So it provided so many things that this downtown needed, this one, redevelopment. And I believe this is also Skowhegan, and it's a pretty more straightforward facade development, but I just want you to see the difference, again, when you peel off the layers of the materials and what you can put back with old photographs. So, and this is a challenging situation that I think is worth bringing to everyone's attention that has to do with design. So this is downtown Waterville, and I think communities need to figure out where they are in their own preservation ethic. They have to think about balancing working with a major supporter and really balancing it with a preservation perspective. This is something that's not always easy and not always popular, but you need to be consistent and fair and really be the best stewards of your downtown. So what can you do with a major donor? This is a Days jeweler. Can you help them, guide them, work with them to make their project and the downtown better? This is just an unfortunate loss of historic fabric from the original building on the left. So sometimes it's really hard, but it is really one of a Main Street program and a Downtown Networks program major and most important values to the community is preserving these buildings and the sense of place. So let's talk for a little bit about green energy and energy efficiency and green buildings in downtown. So as I'm sure you know, that reuse of buildings really is one of the greenest type of buildings that there is. You have embodied energy and the building is already there. The Downtown Center has a program that they've worked on called My Green Downtown, and it's based on 4 principles. All right, design, which again has to do with the preservation, social, which really has to do with what works for the people that live, work, and play downtown, energy, again, really looking at energy efficiency practices, and then health, which really has to do with walkability, bikeability. So the Green Downtown project, here's a project that was done in Damascata. It did a schematic of what these buildings could be, including putting in an energy efficient heating system. The slide isn't the clearest, I apologize for that. On the left side of the building are trellises, planted trellises that shade the masonry walls and reduce the need for cooling in the summer. So these are little things. Some of them are more attainable than others. The lighting would be LED lighting. The paving would be brick sidewalks that make the pedestrian area more visible and attractive and can easily be repaired if needed. Windows. We'll talk about windows in a minute, but these are restored windows, not replacement windows. And awnings, which I'll also mention. Awnings are a wonderful way to save energy costs, and it's a great, easy, achievable thing for some businesses to do. So this has good design elements. This slide really talks about how preservation, really we need to also think about environmental and conservation. We think about preservation as being beautiful, and we think about it from an economic standpoint, but it really also relates to the environment and conservation. So windows. Windows, there are lots of resources for downtowns and their property owners. There are tax credits at the federal and state level where you are required to follow the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, which would not allow replacement windows. You would have to repair your windows. I mean, the bottom line is replacement windows will only last probably 20 years, and old wood windows, you know, they may have already been in the building for 150 years. If you repair them, they may last another 150 years. So it really it makes good economic sense as well. Historic buildings are designed well, and so you have to keep that in mind when you have people coming into your downtown and doing, you know, renovation of buildings, that some of the things in those buildings were done and are done well. Things like the sides of the buildings are not exposed. They're usually covered and well insulated. Brick also can be a good construction insulator. And so some of the things in those buildings were done initially and done well. There are some problems that come with the old commercial buildings, and some of them can be fixed. So this slide references the windows and leaking and air and moisture, but these are things that can be fixed. Large storefront windows can lose the heat, but that's where I say think about whether awnings may have been there historically. And then they talk about old heating systems. Efficiency Maine offers incentives for heat pumps. It offers a small business program which includes lighting retrofits at a significantly reduced rate. So your downtown property owners could lower their electricity costs by switching out bulbs through Efficiency Maine, and they will switch out the fixtures. They bring an electrician into the downtown, and I know they've worked in Norway and in Waterville, so they are taking that small business program on the road to other communities in Maine. So some things you can do, design things in your downtown that are really pretty easy. Some of them sound crazy, but they really are important. Washing out storefront windows and doors, providing containers with flowers or tools to plant some flats in front of your building, the open signs and the banners. You could provide professional color consulting for the properties or provide paint supplies. I think of a way to work with like United Way Day of Caring. You could contact your local United Way regional office to see if they would do a downtown project, which could be a cleaning or a painting. Also, other corporations often have community work days. Faith groups and high school students also have service requirements or missions. They are great. You just have to connect with them to do some of this work. You could order and install, we talked about the banners, repaint pedestrian crosswalks. Waterville did a project a few years ago where they actually painted their sidewalks and did it like a public art sidewalk. So they had temporary art installation. It still was in compliance with the crosswalks that you need, but it was really a fabulous design element over their summer season with just fun designed sidewalks, some sort of temporary paint that they used. And I should grab a slide of that next time. Sorry, I didn't include that. But really, lastly, make sure that every business in your downtown has a version of your logo to use on all their marketing materials, shopping bags, window clings, whatever you can think of. So another thing that I recommend you considering is doing something like a building inventory from the inside out. This is something that many of you do commercial or I guess business inventories, but this is a chance to do an inventory of the building itself. And it's really a great way for you to understand the economic potential of your downtown buildings. So I'm sure many of you have looked at your buildings in your downtown, but you haven't been in them. So Why do you need to do this? Because you're going to get firsthand information about experiencing that building, those empty spaces, what they could be. It really will give you new information. And this is a great thing for our Main Street communities to take on because this is a way to kind of reinvigorate your understanding of your downtown. It's a second level of you. As I said, many of you do business inventories. Biddeford has their board members help out with this. This is another project that you could do with a partner like the local historical society or the local historic district. It really will demonstrate at a very pure level, your mission and your purpose and, all of your preservation work that you're doing in your downtown. And as this says, you can combine it with a business inventory. I think when you go in buildings, as you'll see in a slide coming up, you could identify new economic opportunities when you get inside the building. And you could really change the way that you think of that building. Again, it serves as a repository of information for this type of thing. A lot of our downtown organizations, real estate developers will come and talk to the downtown organization and say, what do you know about this building? And yes, they go to their city as well, but having a Main Street have this information is great. And here's the great example. You might not know from looking at the exterior of this office space that it really is only this wide. So I feel like when you get into the buildings, you can really start to envision this kind of work. It's also a great chance to engage other partners in your communities. I mentioned like the Historical Society or a Preservation Commission, but this is a chance to really consider inviting in architects, other contractors or craftsmen, people who are naturally curious about what the work is of your organization and they might just want to help out. They just don't know how, and they probably don't have a lot of time at first, but what a great way to engage some new people in your downtown. Get your tools and get ready to head out. I recommend that you consider having a form like this as an inventory form. The one thing you have to clarify with the property owners is you're not searching for code violations. You really just have to express you're wanting to understand what's going on in the buildings from the inside out. We have a finite square footage in our downtowns for economic return. This is really, again, a chance for you to learn more about your buildings than you ever have before. These are some other ideas for really how to do outreach around historic preservation. What do you need to engage the public and what are you doing? I think things like attending meetings like a planning meeting or historic district commission or design review. And I also think it's part of your mission to try to tackle the negativity. There are people who are going to say, don't tell me what I can do with my property or what I can't do with my property. And it's really your job to impress upon them all the good information about why historic preservation matters and why it is really an economic argument. Here's, examples of things like design review guidelines, and we talked about inventorying and kind of documenting and analyzing your downtown. May is National Historic Preservation Month, so it's a great chance to start putting out information in your community about the value of historic preservation, or as you go to your municipalities seeking funding. I have a few additional need-to-know resources that I wanted to share with you. There's information about everything. We have our own state Maine Historic Preservation Commission. Every state has one. Ours is the distributor of survey funding from the federal government, as well as some level of technical assistance in helping with National Register properties. So they are a resource, a great resource for information. And then our statewide preservation organization, Maine Preservation, is really more doing things like programming. They celebrate awards recipients for positive, good preservation projects around the state. They are a great resource as far as having a I'm trying to think what it's called. Robert is on the phone. I don't know whether he wants to chime in. They are a resource that they have a list of contractors on their website. So if you need a specialist to come into your downtown, they are a great resource for that as well.
They also provide field services. So if you have technical questions, Chris Kloss at Maine Preservation can help you with those technical questions, everything from ordinance design to construction questions, to feasibility studies, to tax credit questions. They can answer all of those calls.
Thank you, Robert. I was like, field service, yes. So they're a great organization. So I didn't know this until recently, but this Bangor House was the first project in the country to use the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. And they actually still have this photograph on their guidelines. So it really is one of the first federal tax projects in the entire country, right in Bangor, and I did not know that until recently. So the standards and rehabilitation, this is highly technical information that we're just going to pass right by, but if you get into a project with a developer, there are people in Maine, contractors, Sutherland Consulting, that can work with a developer at interpreting these standards and doing a successful development project and application to receive that tax credit. So we do have the federal tax credit program, and then we have a state tax credit program as well. So, and let's see, once this is, where we go. So the work is definitely hard that you guys are doing on the issues of preservation and also of design in your downtowns. Once you demolish your built heritage, you're from anywhere. So it is important. We definitely need to work on this. There are cases around Maine where there are properties at risk and people have demolition delay ordinances which last for 90 days, but then people don't really know what to do during that 90 days. And so we are here as a resource, as is Maine Preservation and the Maine Historic Preservation Commission. This is a scene in Waterville. They're holding up the sign, "This Place Matters," which is a National Trust slogan. And really, when you put it all together, what do you get? You get economic reinvestment, jobs, recycled buildings, a quality of life, a sense of place, and really healthy, walkable downtowns. And I go back to this original slide, really tying it all together for you, that really for quality of life, you need economic, you need a good physical environment, social circle, and civic circle, which really ties right in. So what I'd like to do is see if anybody has questions. You can go to your chat feature on your screen. I would love to entertain some questions on design. And this slide, Robert and I were in Gardner last week, and I have to say, one of the funnest design examples I've seen, these buckets with fishing poles and wooden painted fish are all over downtown. And it's festive and fun and was a great feature to see on one of our first spring days. So please feel free to type in questions on the chat feature, and we will answer those for you. Just give it a minute, and it is possible that we might not have questions today, but if we don't, we will be sharing this information with you, and we look forward to diving in to our next topic, which is promotion on May 25th. And we will be talking about events in your downtowns. So we'll just give it another couple. Great. I am not seeing any. Robert, are you seeing any on your screen?
I'm not.
Okay, great. Okay. So please feel free to contact me directly if there's something I can help you with offline, or Robert would also be glad to help you. Thank you for attending our webinar today. We look forward to seeing you on May 25th, and I hope that you got some takeaway tips today on how to implement the design portion of the 4-point approach in your communities. And with that, I will close the webinar. Thank you.
And there's one more